So, welcome everyone. So, we were listening to Shraddhavan's recording of Book 1, Canto 5, and this part where we kind of last stopped. So, today let us take it forward. And also, I think because we may have joined in between, and of course, there is a long kind of a story before Canto 5 also, all of us are aware. So we have to see that it's like I feel that we can't jump to these kind of realizations. There is a process behind them. So to Ashwapati now, where he is right now, things are looking atomic, which earlier appeared so large in his ordinary consciousness. But for us, we will see that we are not able to see things that's atomic, क्योंकि अभी वो stage achieve नहीं है, so that's why the inner practice is a mandate, we have to continue doing the inner practice, and we may try very hard that whatever things are there in front of me, the life situations, the stories in the mind, that let me see them as atomic and not very huge. But we will not be able to see them because that consciousness is not there. We are living on a different plane altogether. और उस प्लेन में हमको चींटी भी पहाड़ के जैसी लगती है. तो प्लेन का फर्क है, and that is why it is for those of us who are maybe wanting to do it or have a call for the path, it's important that that inward journey of ascending the ladder of consciousness, that goes on. Otherwise, these things that we are reading, theoretically we may be able to get it, but our life will not change. Day to day life में वही चीजें छोटी छोटी आपको बहुत बड़ी लगेंगी. So we have to see that first there was an ascent, there was an aspiration from Ashwapati. He rose higher in his consciousness. That's what we were reading in the earlier cantos. And then a descent leaped down, a mighty descent came down and changed his body and nerve and fiber and everything. So that ascent has to be there, and then the descent of course comes, and then everything follows. So without that we can't, we can talk about cosmic or universal consciousness, but talking about universal consciousness and touching universal consciousness are two very, very different things. People who may have realized to whatever extent this cosmic wideness, many of them may not even talk about it. So talking is different and realizing is different. So let us also put some effort on the inward. And how do we put effort? That every time little things trouble us, to see that it's actually very little in the vast scale and step back. जहाँ पे भी लग रहा है कुछ मेरे में है जो grasp करना चाह रहा है, possess करना चाह रहा है, I want to be right, we can step back from that. And the moment we step back, we experience a wideness immediately. And this is what in synthesis of yoga also, before touching the part of universalizing and cosmic consciousness, Sri Aurobindo talks of release from the subjection of heart and mind. He talks of release from the subjection of body, from ego. And in all of these, the common element that we see is to step back from the movements of Prakriti, to not follow and listen to the dictates of lower movements. And then slowly aspire also, and as there are centers where we can center ourselves and utilize whatever our empty pockets of time. So center ourselves in, gather ourselves in the depths of the heart or above the head, or wherever one feels like, below the navel, stomach area. You can call peace there. If the vital disturbances are there, we can call peace, and solid settled peace can be called, and that area then settles down. So these practices go hand in hand with reading Savitri. I feel personally that those of us who really are sincere about it, or maybe have a call. So I thought I'll just share this before we go ahead. Yeah, so let us read some new lines today. Yeah. Would anyone want to read lines in blue?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
The old adamantine vetoes stood no more, overpowered were earth and nature's obsolete rule. The python coils of the restricting law could not restrain the swift arisen God. Abolished were the scripts of destiny. Just read that one more time. The old adamantine vetoes stood no more, overpowered were earth and nature's obsolete rule. The python coils of the restricting law could not restrain the swift arisen God. Abolished were the scripts of destiny. Thank you.
So it's like, we were talking last time that, for example, a car has a different law because it is running on road. For aeroplane, there are different laws. It's running in the air, and flying, not even running. Then for a spaceship, the laws will change because there is not a gravity there, and it's a different plane. So like that, we have different planes in our consciousness, and in on whatever plane we are living, that particular plane, उस पे जो भी whatever laws are there, they will be the ones which will be the determining factor. So if I am a car, if I am on the route, then I have to get the fuel, and I can't fly, of course, right now, cars can't fly. And टायर की हवा चेक करानी होती है टाइम टू टाइम, खिड़की दरवाजे होते हैं, things are there. If I am an aeroplane, then I only have to run on the road for a short while. I can't always run on the road. वहां का लॉ अलग हो गया, अब आधा टाइम आपको हवा में रहना है, और हवा के अलग लॉज हैं, हवा के ट्रैफिक कंट्रोल अलग हैं, and again changes for the other domains. So if I am living on the mental plane, those laws will overpower me and I will have to follow those laws unwantingly. I may not want it, but अगर जैसे हम देखते हैं ना, if I am living in the consciousness of the ego, if I am living on the ego plane, it is not possible that my heart is not constricted from time to time and I'm not feeling burdened from time to time. It is not possible, because in the ego zone, there comes a time when it is not a possibility. You have to go further. It has to, the shell has to be cast off. Otherwise, from time to time, you will feel very suffocated and something will not feel right. But in the ego zone, that's the law. You can't help it. It's just the law. In the feelings also, there is no person who can be jealous or angry and can be very easy about it. They may not admit that they are uneasy, but they will be uneasy. It is the law of that, for example, disturbing emotions, that hoga hi hoga. So like that, different planes of our consciousness have different laws. Now Ashwapati has arisen in his consciousness. He's ascending the planes of consciousness. So the old adamantine laws, vetoes, कि ऐसा ही होगा. Adamantine is adamant. I am adamant, very rigid. वो अब वहां valid नहीं है. And I was thinking about it, like for a person who is like, us in ordinary consciousness, egoistic consciousness, if I'm going into a forest, I will be scared and कोई attack ना कर दे, कोई जानवर ना आ जाए. Why? Because I'm living in the consciousness of separate self. But for a yogi or a seer, that he is not in that consciousness of fear and wanting to be in the separate self. It is not there. तो उसके लिए वो अटैक वटैक, इट इज काइंड ऑफ इट इज लाइक वो उसके दिमाग में आएगा भी नहीं, फॉर एग्जाम्पल, क्योंकि वो कहीं और ही है. ही इज गोइंग थ्रू द फॉरेस्ट बट ही इज समवेयर एल्स, सो. तो हम जिस प्लेन पे रहते हैं उस प्लेन के जो लॉज हैं वो हमको ओवर पावर करते हैं. And in this case, as I am ascending in my consciousness, those laws which earlier were adamantine, they now lost their grip. This we feel actually from time to time. It may, to us, it may happen in moments. Like in one moment, when I'm actually free and easy and without any disturbance of the ego zone, we are not in the disturbed domain at all. We are not minding things. छोटी छोटी चीजें हर्ट नहीं कर रही. और it takes just a while to get back into those zones also. कि एकदम से अब सब कुछ हर्ट कर रहा है. और अभी कहाँ थे, अभी बिल्कुल हर्ट नहीं कर रहा था. वाह वाह, हाँ ये भी ले लो मेरा, वो भी ले लो मेरा, सब कुछ ले लो क्योंकि बिल्कुल ईजी हो. और अब एकदम से सब कुछ हर्ट करने लग गया, किसी ने कुछ कह दिया. सो दिस इज हाउ laws change, and according to the ascent of consciousness, we are not then in the grip of these adamant laws which earlier appear very powerful. So the old adamantine vetoes stood no more. अब वो खड़ी नहीं हो रही कि रोको इसको, ये इससे आगे नहीं जा सकता. Why? क्योंकि वो वहां पे है ही नहीं. एक कुत्ते को तुम किसी दूसरी से पाकिस्तान और कहीं और जाने से तुम रोक सकते हो बॉर्डर पे कि भाई कुत्ता है. बर्ड को कैसे रोकोगे, मच्छर को कैसे रोकोगे? सो लाइक दैट जैसे जैसे हमारा प्लेन ऑफ कॉन्शियसनेस चेंज होता है, हवा को कैसे रोकोगे दूसरी कंट्री में जाने से, ये बोल के ये बॉर्डर है, यहाँ पे इंडिया की हवा नहीं जा सकती या यूरोप की हवा यहाँ पे नहीं आ सकती, कैसे रोकोगे? सो द ओल्ड एडमेंटाइन वीटोज स्टूड नो मोर. दे हैव नो ग्रिप हियर. ओवरपावर्ड वर अर्थ एंड नेचर्स ऑब्सोलीट रोल. वो जो अब ऑब्सोलीट हो चुका है, वो पुराने जमाने का हो गया, उसका कोई यहाँ पे वैलिडिटी नहीं है. जो अर्थ कॉन्शियसनेस में व्हेन वी आर देयर, भूख लग रही है और बिल्कुल जिया नहीं जा रहा, भूख के मारे दिमाग नहीं काम कर रहा, वो ही इज नॉट ऑन दैट प्लेन जो अर्थ की ग्रिप में होता है. सो ओवरपावर्ड वर अर्थ एंड नेचर्स ऑब्सोलीट रूल. फॉर हिम these rules are now obsolete. They are not holding true anymore. The python coils of the restricting law could not restrain the swift arisen god. Python is, if we have studied a little bit of, out of curiosity, National Geographic or some science, we will know that python की एक खासियत होती है that it coils around that animal and it suffocates. And it suffocates in such a manner that the animal or whatever the prey is now dead. So those kind of laws which suffocate us with such python coil, that you can't breathe anymore, they are not valid for him now. They can't restrain because वो वहां पे है नहीं. Now for example, again we can take an example here. For an animal, python is a dangerous thing because it can coil around, right, and suffocate. What about air? Can air be suffocated by python? Of course not. वो वहां पे है ही नहीं, वो उसकी ग्रिप में आ ही नहीं सकती. It's a subtle consciousness. While animal is, we can call it earth consciousness, and that is subtle, ether. So now the python coils of restricting law, they could not contain him anymore. They could not limit him anymore कि तुम ये नहीं करोगे अब. Could not restrain the swift arisen god. Abolished were the scripts of destiny. So as long as we are living in the zone of egoistic consciousness, the वो कहते हैं ना कि ये तो लिखवा के आया है, those kind of things. And mother also says that astrology to some extent has power. Why? Because we are living in earth consciousness, mostly identified with the body, mind and life, and there all the elements of earth also, like earth elements mean the other planets also, they have a play on us. as long as I am identified with that body too much, that this is me. अच्छा मेरा कौन सा काल चल रहा है, राहु काल, केतु काल, whatever. But mother says that once you are totally consecrated and slowly with a greater degree to the divine grace can annul the previous karma and no nothing valid anymore. Abolished were the scripts of destiny. तो अब लिखा होगा कि हाँ तुमने कम जीना है, बट अब उसकी ग्रिप में नहीं हो तुम, अब तुम जियोगे जितना डिवाइन चाहता है, इफ द consecration has happened. Now he is not ruled by his planets, and this can happen with anyone. If we surrender ourselves fully, our life, our thought, our feelings fully to the divine, then we are not under the grip of all these elements. So this is what is happening here in these lines. Yeah, anything here, anyone? We'll also read a few lines from MP Pandit ji, his commentary on these lines we will read. But if there is anything you can share.
Yes, I have a question, Monica. So, like, if we are in a space, so that space has its frequency, right? So it has its frequency and it was, right? So how can we rise in consciousness? Being in that space, we can rise in consciousness so that the laws of that space do not affect us.
Beautiful question, yes. Say, for example, Sri Aurobindo is in Alipur jail. Now he can do either all the time engaged in what is bad about this place, or whatever. So many things are happening which should not be happening. Or he can, if we again read tales of prison life, we will see that most of the time he was just into himself. He was doing something. He was not on that plane. And that is why he could be so humorous about the details that he writes about the prison. Because although they were bothersome, but they were not only the thing that he was attending to. He was attending to something else. So he was ingathering his mind. In one sense, we can say, of course, many things were happening, but in one sense, we can say that he was ingathering his mind on the divine. अब क्या करते हैं? I was talking to someone yesterday, and we were talking about people who are very punctual. Now, of course, it is good to be punctual. अगर 10 बोला है तो 10 बजे आओ. हमारे साथ प्रॉब्लम क्या होती है that if I am punctual and if I arrive say 15 minutes before the scheduled time and the other person arrives say 15 minutes past or 20 minutes past the scheduled time, we become frustrated. That is not right, क्योंकि उसमें हम अपने आप को भी टॉर्मेंट कर रहे हैं और स्पेस खराब कर रहे हैं. तो उस समय को हम कैसे यूटिलाइज कर सकते हैं? वी कैन इन गैदर अवर टाइम ऑन द डिवाइन. उसको आप भक्ति मार्ग बना लो ना. किसने बोला वो 45 मिनट्स वेस्ट करो? So you must love to wait. It's a practice that we can cultivate, that we love to wait. Now I'm not saying that all of us now, this means that okay, all of us are allowed to not be on time and let the other person wait. That's not what I mean. I mean that what's the point in tormenting oneself about anything that is, for example, my own discipline. I arrive 15 minutes early because I like to. If the other person doesn't arrive 15 minutes early or on the time, then I have something to do. I'm not sitting idle and waiting and getting frustrated. So we can use these empty times to ingather ourselves. So the question that you asked, how do we do that? You ingather yourself as if you are on a different plane. हाँ, वो काम भी होगा जिसके लिए आप वेट कर रहे हो, but right now you are on a different plane. है ना? एक कबीर जी का दोहा है where he says, साजन रे मैं तोरे थाकी और बसू विराने वास, काम करूं घर आपनो पर जिवड़ो तमीड़े पास, कि मैं जहां पे भी हूं, मैं काम तो एक्सटर्नल वर्ल्ड में कर रही हूं, बट मेरा जो हार्ट है, इट ऑलवेज ऑलवेज इज रिजाइडिंग इन यू. So this is what we have to do, because this is again, you are on a different plane of consciousness. Or of course, in another way, it can be said that you locate yourself, you attend, you attend your other centers of consciousness. You ingather yourself there, because these centers of consciousness, or maybe in chakras in other way, they are openings to our higher self. ऐसा कि खिड़कियां बनाई हुई हैं. एक्चुअली में खिड़की बोला गया है इनको. काफी जो मिस्टिक्स हैं उन्होंने 10 द्वार बोले हुए हैं. 10 द्वार का पिंजरा या में जोत पहचान. तो 10 द्वार बोले गए हैं. उन द्वारों से झांको ना. तो वो कहते हैं कि झांको, खोल के देखो. पूरी जिंदगी निकल जाती है और एक भी द्वार पे हम झांक के नहीं देखते. These are also again in Savitri, it would come, these are called narrow dams. As if कि वो छोटे छोटे borders लगाए हुए हैं, और जब when the being is ready, then they open. And if we put effort and whatever, the consciousness is ascending and the descent is happening, then they open, and then we further connect to the higher self that we are. So this is how we ascend, or what you were sharing in the consciousness, that we, एक तो lower chakras हैं, उनको भी of course they need purification, but attending to the higher, to the deeper deep in the heart, or above, between the eyes, wherever actually it's one's own call, wherever you are feeling like, जहां जहां आपको फील हो रहा है वहां पे इन गैदर करो माइंड को, and that is how slowly the ascension happens, and then the descent happens. Usually they say that the descent happens when we are called, say for example, to place the consciousness above our head. Then slowly, as if when we are ready, of course it cannot happen when we are not ready, then the descending force opens the chakras from above. So like this, these are just again a few ways that I am saying, like this we ascend in our consciousness.
I have a question. So I remember when I was listening to somebody talk many years back, they mentioned about how Shankaracharya traveled from one end of the country to the other to promote Hinduism, and in those times, to travel from one end of the country to the other meant walking through forests and for.
Yeah. You're muted. Yeah, now we can hear. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, there was a call coming, I guess that's why. So so if he traveled then and faced the dangers of the wild animals in the forest and yet survived and did what he needed to, that example came when you said that they're not he's not affected, he's not on that plane. So this is very difficult for me to understand about not being on the same plane, because we also talk about being mindful, being aware, being in the present. So does that mean like you're going in some other la la land, or
नहीं, बिल्कुल भी नहीं. I think again very beautiful, relevant thing that you asked. Thankful for that. So देखो क्या हो रहा है. What we mean by living on a different plane does not mean that I am living in a trance or I am not here. It just means, see, what happens when we are here in this material world is that we get too much identified with it. और उसमें क्या होता है, हम जो बाहर की चीजें हैं जो टाइम टू टाइम चेंज हो रही है, मटेरियल वर्ल्ड का डेफिनेशन ही यही है कि दैट इट्स चेंजिंग ऑल द टाइम, है ना. बहुत पहले कोई इमारत रही होगी, अब आज उसके रूइंस हैं. इट्स चेंजिंग, एंड लाइक दैट पीपल चेंज, लाइक दैट सिचुएशंस चेंज. What happens with us is that I am here, and what happens because of my not gathering myself into, say, some other plane or in some other world, is that I make my ground here. Here का मतलब या तो किसी बंदे पे चिपक जाएंगे, या किसी एक सिचुएशन पे चिपक जाएंगे कि ये हो तो ऐसा ही हो. और उससे क्या होता है, क्योंकि इट्स अ दलदल वाला, इट्स अ मार्शी ग्राउंड, इट्स विल बी, it's like क्विक सैंड कह लो, कुछ भी कह लो, it's changing every moment. And that brings us again and again lot of hurt, until I realize that this is not the right way to live. And that is why mother says that always and always lean back only on the divine for all your needs and emotional supports. Because she says that if you try to do it on any material thing like a person, situation, whatever, you will fall on your nose and it will hurt very badly. So it does not mean that I am not mindful, not at all. It just means that I am not wanting anything from here. जो मेरी want and needs हैं वो वहां पे मीट हो रही हैं, बस इतना इसका मतलब है ना? क्योंकि हम जो भी काम करते हैं वो अपनी हम नीड की वजह से करते हैं. अगर मान लो हम एक रिलेशनशिप में हैं तो हम क्या चाहते हैं? इट्स एक्सपीरियंस ऑफ ऑल ऑफ अस. क्या बोलते हैं हम कि ये बंदा मेरी इमोशनल नीड नहीं पूरी कर रहा, क्या फायदा हुआ साथ रहने का, ये कोई कंपेनियनशिप ही नहीं है, क्योंकि आपने, है ना, आप साथ में रह रहे हो बट यू कांट समहाउ, वी ऑल cannot help expecting in a relationship. So that is why it is said that if we ground ourselves in the divine, and then all the relationships are there, you are allowed, everybody is allowed, then I am not seeking anything from it. If joy comes, I take it. If sorrow comes, I take it. क्योंकि मुझे कुछ उम्मीद ही नहीं थी, वहां से आना ही नहीं था, समझ आ गई थी कि वहां से नहीं आना है ना? तो जत्सुन्मा क्या कहती हैं, when her cave where she was meditating, it was full of so much of snow and everything was blocked, and she said, oh my god, I didn't imagine this would happen. And then suddenly she says, I realized, oh, this is samsara, what else did I expect from this? Disappointment. So the only thing is that we don't have to root ourselves here. अश्वपति का भी हम यही देखते हैं ना, he is rooting himself in the infinite, but he is very much here in the finite. He is very much here and doing things for the earth consciousness, but his roots are not in the earth consciousness, but he is in regular touch with it, communion with it. तो इसका मतलब ये नहीं है कि हम कहीं और ही हैं और ट्रांस में खोए हुए हैं और पता नहीं एंट हिल बना रही है हमारे अंदर, हम कहीं खोए हुए हैं. अगेन दैट ऑल्सो हैज इट्स पर्पस, but it does not mean that we can't be mindful. We can be mindful of the things that we are doing, the words that we are speaking, the thoughts that we are having, and yet I know that I am not seeking anything from the material world because I am getting everything from the divine connection within. ये है जो राधा, मदर ने राधा वाली एक प्रेयर लिखी है, राधा's prayer. It's very beautiful. So there she says, Radha, that, O thou, who I have considered my Lord, to you belong all my thoughts, all my feelings, all my sensations. And if you want sorrow for me, sorrow is good. If you want joy for me, joy is good. I will go. And that's what we see in Meera's life. She drank poison. ये नहीं बोला हे भगवान, क्या करूंगी मैं. She is not on that plane. So the poison law did not operate on her. सेम विद निसर्ग दत्त महाराज, खा गए पूरे मैरुआना, मुंह में डाल गए, क्या हुआ? कुछ भी नहीं, वो है ही नहीं वहां पे कि उसका इफेक्ट हो, है ना? और हम एक बियर पी लेते हैं तो टुन हो जाते हैं. क्यों? क्योंकि हम यहीं पे हैं. और खैर वो हम चाहते भी हैं टुन होना, क्योंकि अपने गम को भुलाना होता है टाइम टू टाइम, बट whatever. So this is what
also when like adding to Deepa's question, and even when we're talking about this forest example, something I read mother's encounter in one of the stories that she's written that has really stayed with me. She talks about a very real story that she knew a Buddhist who had to go through a mountainous and a forest region, and her guru told her that you have to go through this route. And when she was going and she was trying to find, and mother says it's actually, I know that it's true, and she asked people about the route that the guru has given, and the people said don't go through this because there's a very deadly tiger, and the tiger eats the man alive, and nobody goes through there, so you don't go. Or even if you're going, go with few people who can help you, or take some weapons, because she was very adamant that I have to go because I have just got the directions from my master. But everybody says, okay, if you're going, take some weapon, take few people with you, we can come, or something like that. And she says, no, I'll be okay, because as you were saying, she was not on that plane. So that example comes so beautifully, and she goes on. And there is no fear. Mother actually talks about fear in that story, that how things can be changed if you don't have fear. And the normal law that we were talking will not operate. And when she goes through the forest, the tiger actually comes. So it's not that the tiger doesn't come, it actually comes. But when she sees the tiger, there is, of course, a sensation, because mother says even the cell of her bodies hold fear. So that sensation comes, but immediately she catches it and she says to herself, because she's a Buddhist, she believes in Buddhist philosophy or compassion and all. She said, okay, if even if the tiger has to eat my life, may this be an act of ultimate compassion, that my body will become service to a hungry tiger, and in that time I will just sit down and I will just ingather myself. So she sits down in the meditation, and she said, I reject the fear. So and I was completely stunned, because mother keeps saying that you will feel that it's not a true story, but it's a true story, I know. And she meditates, and she's completely certain that she's going to be eaten alive, because everybody said that it eats the man. And the beauty is that the tiger doesn't eat her, and tiger just goes away. So mother wanted to say that how fear brings, makes things 100 times worse, just because she transcended her fear and had believed in the grace. Now in that sense, her Buddhahood, because in that sense, that she has so much solidity in her that even the thing that would have happened to a normal person didn't happen to her. So that was so beautiful. And when you're talking about it, exactly that. And when Deepa were asking this question, it's about, as you said, that having that solidity within, that you do not, then you transcend that normal form of consciousness. But of course, it's very difficult.
Yeah. I think Alokda says that it was the mother herself. So although she narrates as if it's a third person, but it was the mother herself. And what he was sharing about this story is that there was a group of people and mother was a part of it, and they were going through a forest, and it was time for mother to meditate. And as you were sharing, that people said that you don't stop here and you can do the meditation later, but it was her time. And she closed her eyes, and then, as you said, the tiger was in front, and then she opened her eyes, and it was the tiger in front, and then she closed again, and the things that you were telling, and then it was not there anymore. It was gone, the tiger. And Alokda says that he thinks that it was the mother herself. So that's why I was smiling when you were sharing that. Yeah, it's amazing how mother tells stories, because many a time she's referring to herself and she's talking in a third person point of view. Nice. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. So, I think this story also came at a right point, because the lines next are almost again here. Yeah, would anyone want to read these 3 lines?
If nobody else, then I would love to.
Yeah, please go ahead.
There was no small, death-hunted creature more, no fragile form of being to preserve from an all-swallowing immensity. I'll just read that one more time. There was no small, death-hunted creature more, no fragile form of being to preserve from an all-swallowing immensity.
Yeah, so I think the story that Nandini was sharing, the tiger is in front, but there is no one who is afraid of being eaten up. because someone knows that even if I am eaten up, let me be eaten up. It doesn't matter. It's not a big deal. So there was no small death-hunted creature more. So if we look at our narrow lives, कितनी चीजों से डर लगता है यार हमको. कोई कोविड हो रहा है तो हाय उसको हो रहा है, मैं नहीं जाऊं उसके पास, मेरे को ना हो जाए. देखो अपना जीवन हमको देखना चाहिए, है ना. किसी और को कुछ हो रहा है, आई इन्फेक्शन हो रहा है, या कुछ कोल्ड एंड कफ हो रहा है, या कुछ बुखार हो रहा है, कुछ भी हो रहा है ना. एंड पीपल हैव बीन देयर. लेप्रेसी इज कंसिडर्ड टू बी अ contagious disease. There have been people who have been serving people with this disease and they have remained untouched. कहाँ है वो, कौन से प्लेन पे है ना. Mothers talks about this in integral healing. We were reading that there are people who are working with, say, war stricken areas and lots of infectious diseases. They are not getting infected. Where are they operating from? So इसका मतलब हम सबके पास कैपेसिटी है to step back from this little separate me and always, as mother says in prayers and meditations, too much obsessed by saving and preserving this little me. कितना संभालोगे, है ना. अब कितनी स्टोरीज है हमारे पास जहाँ पे तुमने इतना बचाने की कोशिश करी और एक्चुअली डेथ ने तुम्हें वहां आके पकड़ लिया जहां तुम बच के बैठे हुए थे. बहुत स्टोरीज हैं ऐसी हमारे पास. यहाँ छुप रहे हो, वहां छुप रहे हो, और वहीं आके बम फटता है कि जहाँ पे छुपे हुए हो. तो छुप लो जितना छुपना है. और कुछ वो भी हैं कि जो बिल्कुल छुपते नहीं है और दे हैव लॉन्ग लाइफ बिकॉज दे हैव नो फियर ऑफ एनीथिंग. उठाना है तो उठा ले, अभी उठा ले, मतलब मेरा क्या है. तो जितना हम पकड़ पकड़ के बैठते हैं अपने आप को, अपने जीवन को, मेरा ये ना छिन जाए, मेरा वो ना छिन जाए, मेरा बच्चा, मेरी फैमिली, जितना हम ऐसे नैरो और कंस्ट्रिक्ट होके जीते हैं, वी रिमेन अ स्मॉल डेथ हंटेड क्रीचर. So what do we want to do, with our life? Do we want to live a fearful life, all the time worried about ourselves, knowing that even if I am worried and doing all possible, background inspections that my house is safe and best earthquake resistance and everything, you may be actually out of the house and part of some big drama and the house may be standing but you are gone. What then? तो कब तक, ये तो हमारे ऊपर है. मतलब हाउ लॉन्ग डू वी वांट. सी, या तो सिक्योरिटी मिल सकती है या लाइफ मिल सकती है. लाइफ चाहिए या ये और वो भी ऐसी सिक्योरिटी जो सिक्योरिटी है ही नहीं. इट्स लाइक फॉल्स सिक्योरिटी. कौन बच गया लाइफ इंश्योरेंस से, कौन बच गया अर्थक्वेक प्रूफ रेजिस्टेंट बिल्डिंग से. जिसको मरना था वो कहीं भी मर सकता है ना. सो एज मदर सेज इन मदर्स एजेंडा, मदर सेज दैट डिवाइन is the ultimate security. हम सबको सिक्योरिटी की तलाश है. किसी बंदे में चाहिए, किसी सिचुएशन में चाहिए, मेरा जॉब ना छिन जाए, मेरे इतने पैसे तो आते रहें, है ना, मेरे बच्चे मेरे से दूर ना जाएं, हमेशा मेरे से कनेक्ट बना के रखें, क्या क्या, एवरीथिंग वी कैन थिंक अबाउट ऑफ इट, है ना. So the ultimate security, that's what we were talking of earlier, that if we can root and plunge ourselves in the divine, that is our ultimate security. उसके बाद हम जी सकते हैं, खुल के जी सकते हैं. ये नहीं कि, है ना, एक्चुअली कबीर जी टेक्स एन एग्जांपल ऑफ डियर, दैट अ डियर, since it is again fragile and it has its own bodily limitations, it is always living in the fear of being eaten. टाइगर कहीं यहाँ से आ जाए, कहीं वहां से आ जाए, कोई पकड़ ले, always. And even if anyone has seen in the forest deer sleeping, it sleeps standing and it hardly actually sleeps. It's always on the alert. And actually Kabir ji uses example of mindfulness कि ऐसे mindful रहो कि जैसे deer mindful होता है, क्योंकि वो किसी भी समय खाया जा सकता है. So दोनों तरीके से हम इस example को use कर सकते हैं. Ever watchful and mindful like a deer, कि अभी फिसले, अभी फिसले, अभी फिसले. फिसल तो किसी भी समय सकते हैं in the ego consciousness. और या फिर ये देखो कि इतना डरा हुआ है वो इंसान मतलब डियर, कि वो चैन ही नहीं है उसको. एक चैन की घास ही नहीं खा पा रहा बेचारा. अभी मुंह मारा और इधर उधर देख रहा है कि कोई बाघ तो नहीं आ रहा आसपास. People who have seen that in forest safaris or wherever, that's how deer is. So do we want to live a life like that? If we want to, if we think it's normal, we have no problem, of course we can continue. But if we feel now suffocated with such a life, then तो थोड़ा जिगरा खोल के ही जीना चाहिए. जीना थोड़ा ही भला, हरि का सुमिरन होए, लाख बरस का जीवना लिखे धरे ना कोई. आपने एज अ डेथ हंटेड क्रिएचर 100 साल का जीवन जी लिया, डर डर के, या फिर आपने एक छोटा ही जीवन जिया बेशक, बट खुल के जिया, है ना, लोगों के डर से, समाज के डर से, ये ना हो जाए, वो ना हो जाए, मैं ये बाउंड्री ना क्रॉस कर दूं, वो बाउंड्री ना क्रॉस कर दूं. या तो ऐसे जी लो या फिर वैसे जी लो. तो ये तो हमारी चॉइस है, मतलब नोबडी कैन फोर्स, एक्चुअली वी कांट बी फोर्स्ड हियर, जो जिसको सूट करे. So there was no small death hunted creature more, no fragile form of being to preserve. He's totally unbothered. He's not there. He's in touch with the body. Now time and again in Savitri it comes that of course the instrument has undergone a change. So he's in touch with the body fully. He's not in some trance-like of state. But now he knows that he is not just the being identified with the body. He is more than that. He knows that I am more than the body. Therefore, the fear of falling away or the fear of shattering of the body is not there. One realizes that one is more. No fragile form of being to preserve from an all-swallowing immensity. Now, usually how we live, as we were sharing examples of, the diseases, contagious diseases, or say tsunami or आंधी तूफान or anything, it looks as, मतलब we usually live like that कि हमें ना खा जाए, हमें ना कुछ हो जाए, so we, as if we are this little speck, and then there is all swallowing immensity which can swallow us anytime. That's how we live. क्योंकि separation है ना, मैं इतना सा and then इतना बड़ा universe, कहीं कुछ हो ना जाए. तो जब तक मैं इतना सा है, जब तक मैं आइडेंटिफाई करती हूँ दिस लिमिटेड बॉडी से, तब तक तो पक्का कुछ ना कुछ खाने को होता ही रहेगा, कुछ ना कुछ मेरे को खाएगा. बट नाउ अशुपति इज नॉट आइडेंटिफाइड विद द लिमिटेड सेंस ऑफ द बॉडी. ही नोज हिमसेल्फ एज द कॉस्मिक वाइडनेस. तो फिर डर कहाँ है उनको? डर तो उनको हो ना, डर हमारे जैसे उनको हो जिसको लगता है अभी कि मैं तो यही हूँ, ये बॉडी तो हूँ, इसी को तो बचाना है. Now we have to see that it does not mean that we don't need to take care of the body well. No, because we very well know that body is the instrument through which consciousness rises. So it is not abandoning the body, it is understanding the role of the body, that it is just a speck of dust, or just a part, or maybe a very important instrument, whatever name we want to give, but I am not the body. So Ashupati is in that realization that he is not the body. तो फिर अगर बॉडी को कोई swallow कर भी जाए तो क्या डर है? That fearlessness is there. That disidentification from the body is there. Yeah, anything here? Anyone? So let us take a few lines ahead. If there is anything you can share anytime. Yeah.
Shall I read?
Yes.
The great hammer beats of a pent-up world heart burst open the narrow dams that keep us safe against the forces of the universe. The soul and cosmos faced as equal powers.
Yeah. So these are the narrow dams. Earlier I was talking about the chakras, the narrow dams. Masters have said that we don't know how powerful we are. And what happens is that all of our powers are undisclosed, as if we are unaware of them. and they are disclosed to us only as we become ready. क्योंकि अगर मैं प्लास्टिक का कप हूं तो मैं गंगा का फ्लो नहीं कंटेन कर सकती, तो अगर गंगा का फ्लो मेरे ऊपर खोल दिया जाए, I will shatter as a plastic cup. I can't contain it, you know, even as a paper cup. लेकिन अगर मैं एक solid vast container बन चुकी हूँ, then the mighty Ganga river can flow into it, you know, the container or whatever, you know, the vast immensity. So these narrow dams, you know, dam का मतलब कि आपने वो पानी का जो बहाव है वो रोका हुआ है. So there is a lot of there is a actually compilation by A.S. Dalalji. It's called The Powers Within, and their mother Sri Aurobindo's, again lots of compilation. It's like a collected text where he shares about what are the powers sleeping in us or hidden from us. इन्हीं को, in other words, at times we say occult powers or siddhis, or you know, these kind of things, clairvoyance, telepathy. There are many powers. This is just the beginning, you know? People have power actually to change the weather. Many people have siddhis to change the weather. Sri Aurobindo actually, you know, we have one instance where he actually stopped the rain for a while, when one building, Golconda, was being, you know, established. So these powers are hidden from us because we are not yet ready. And mother says that Shraddhavan was sharing that in the ashram, in Pondicherry ashram, mother had put into locker all the books on occultism, because वो ऐसे किसी बंदे के हाथ नहीं लगनी चाहिए जिसको, फॉर एग्जाम्पल, यू नो, एम्बिशन है पावर्स का, या कुछ एक जैसे कुछ मीन इंटेंशन है. So she only shared those books with people who were truly pure and ready to go into occultism. And that is why we see that although, you know, Mother Sri Aurobindo avatars, but never ever really very actively we see them talking about what all they can do, you know, because Mother did not want people to get attracted to these kind of things. She wanted us to remain grounded and do the change in our physical material life. So these powers are also very dangerous powers. If the being is unripened and they come to us early in ambition or whatever, you know, if we are after it and they come early, they open the dam open early. We have many instances of people who are tortured by early rising of Kundalini, for example. क्योंकि अभी वो उसके लिए ready नहीं है. They are going through such things which they never prepared for. So with integral yoga, since the descent is from top and down, not from below to up, so that's what Mother says, that is a very safe process of opening to the higher self. Lower to above is a unsafe process because it can get stuck at any level and then you are in danger, you know. Ego is there alive at any moment. Some siddhi, and we have so many stories, even in India we may hear so many stories. Gurus होते हैं, masters होते हैं, है ना. वैसे तो बड़े बड़े प्रवचन दे रहे हैं और ऐसा नहीं कि उनकी बात में ट्रुथ नहीं है, ट्रुथ भी होगी, but then we see that they are caught in some scandal. So ऐसा नहीं है कि उनके पास realizations नहीं है, but the being fully is not pure. Impurity is there, ambition is there, lust is there. तो तभी इन चीजों से हमको हमेशा एंड तक, जब तक हमारी बॉडी में सांस है, to that extent we have to be vigilant. And Mother shares that never to aspire for powers. Always aspire, say for example, for purity, for consecration, you know, for giving yourself to the divine. Aspire for that, but don't aspire that, oh, I should have that power and that siddhi and, you know, these kind of things, because the divine knows well what all powers you need right now. So if you keep aspiring, only those will come. So like that, these chakras are like subtle openings, and they open only when the being is becoming ready. They should open only then, and they are keeping us safe. That's what we were reading right now. The great hammer beats of a pent-up world heart burst open the narrow dams that keep us safe. So this, you know, wanting to live a fuller life, and aspiring to have a diviner life. With purity, as Ashwapati was rising, that purity gave rise to the opening of the narrow dams. In purity, they open. Here. That keep us safe. So it's very interesting because these chakras are the ones they are keeping us safe actually. कि ऐसा कोई गलत पावर ना हाथ लग जाए जिसका भी हम इस्तेमाल करना नहीं जानते. छोटे बच्चे को तुम रियल बंदूक थोड़ी ना पकड़ा देते हो, अगर पकड़ा दोगे तो कुछ भी हो सकता है. छोटे बच्चे को हम नाइफ नहीं पकड़ने देते, बहुत छोटा बच्चा, एज ही ग्रोज ऑफ कोर्स वी आस्क हिम टू एक्सपेरिमेंट, बट बहुत छोटे बच्चे से हम शार्प ऑब्जेक्ट्स दूर रखते हैं because he is not yet ready to use them. So burst open the narrow dams that keep us safe against the forces of the universe. The soul and cosmos phased as equal powers. So usually we think of ourselves as very little and the cosmos as very big, huge, But now, because of this realization of cosmic consciousness, that I am universal actually, the soul and the cosmos are equal powers. अब वो नहीं लग रहा कि मैं छोटा सा और वो देखो कितनी बड़ी immensity, because you are the immensity now. And that's a true realization. It's not in theory that you are the immensity. So this is why I was sharing that actually for those of us who are interested, it would be nice to go through some things by Sri Aurobindo on cosmic consciousness. In Synthesis of Yoga, you can read about it, or in Letters on Yoga 3 also he shares something about opening to cosmic consciousness, this experience of widening and universalization. And disidentify, the body is there, you know that the body is there, but it's not that much of a matter now. It's just as an instrument there. So yeah, anything here, anyone? So if not anything, let's go through a little bit of commentary on these lines that we were reading from.
Just one question, Monica.
Yeah.
So this immensity that you spoke, is this amongst all organisms on the world, or is it restricted to humans because we have this higher level of consciousness कि एक चींटी भी सोच सकती है कि मेरी immensity बहुत बड़ी है?
It's it's all pervasive, जैसे देखो ना, इसका example that masters have taken is like space. Consciousness is likened to space, and space is extending to the furthest most galaxies that you can imagine, है ना? कहीं वो ये नहीं है कि अर्थ तक स्पेस है और बाहर स्पेस नहीं है. So it will include every creature, every little insect, grain, piece of sand, anything, inanimate, animate, everything, all inclusive, because space is everywhere. So consciousness is everywhere. There is nowhere that consciousness is not. So when we talk of this realization, जो अभी हम पढ़ रहे थे, cosmic realization, so जो भी cosmos में है, you become one with that. It's a practical, happening that it can happen with each one of us.
It's so difficult to grasp consciousness in an inanimate, right?
हाँ, it is difficult, yes. वो grasping की जहाँ पे बात आती है वहाँ पे difficult हो जाता है ना. grasp नहीं कर सकते ना, क्योंकि देखो mind से grasp कर रहे हैं ना, है ना? And even if we sit in meditation, है ना, तो काफी बार we get glimpses of something expansive. But the moment we try to grasp at it, कि बस ये थोड़ी देर चलती रहे और उसी समय उठ हो जाती है, बिल्कुल उड़ जाती है. So grasping is not a possibility here.
But yeah, but I think it can be explained in the sense that अभी ये जो हम molecules, atoms which attract each other, मतलब divine law, divine principle कहीं तो काम कर ही रहा है ना, even in an inanimate object.
बिल्कुल.
So I guess it comes from there, the whole, yeah, if you have to put it that way.
Yeah. So ये थोड़ा सा पढ़ लेते हैं. I think it would be revelatory. Whatever lines that we have done, I'll just read the commentary and then keep going ahead. It's not that much. The rigid laws of terrestrial nature apply only as long as one lives in their domain. Once the consciousness grows beyond its formula, it ceases to be governed by the laws of that surpassed nature. Newer workings take their place. What was not possible before becomes possible now. Now he talks about the Python coils of the restricting law. The downward pull of the inconscient base, the limiting factors arising on life, operating in the physical embodiment, the constitutional disabilities of the mind hedged in by the physical and life elements, no more hold back the winging spirit. The being of Ashupati, emerging into its heights of godhood, passed beyond the workings of earthly nature. Then abolished were the scripts of destiny. Destiny is not ineluctable. Each plane of existence has its own working of destiny. There are layers of destinies. Each person is governed by the destiny of the plane on which he lives predominantly. As he moves in his consciousness to another higher level of being, the destiny of the lower one ceases to apply on him. Thus, as one grows into the spiritual consciousness and shifts his center of life to the higher domains of the spirit, the destiny of the lower physical, vital and mental planes is no more valid for him. He has left it behind. And here, death-hunted creature, Ashupati's being was no more he was no more the precarious existence of the human creature who is ever pursued by the specter of death. He was no more a tiny dot of life in a world of hunger and death, nor did his delicately constituted individual form need to be guarded and saved every moment from the invasion of the universal forces which are constantly striking at each formation that seeks to preserve itself as a separate entity. So as long as I keep myself as a separate entity, कुछ ना कुछ आके मुझे तोड़ के जाएगा ही जाएगा. But if you are not saving anything, then of course, what is there to save? Yeah, this is where we were right now. The conflict and struggle between the universal force and the individually embodied life force continues only as long as the latter strives to maintain itself. So as long as I strive to maintain my limited individuality, only then there is a struggle and fight from the outer forces. It erects around itself walls of division, of ego and desire, and feels secure in its self-limitation. But once the walls are breached by the rushing waters of the larger sea of the universal being, the division is no more. This is this is giving me an image. जैसे होता है ना कि वैसे तो हम as a nation try करते हैं अपनी borders protect करने की, है ना, कि तू मेरे border के अंदर ना आए और मैं तेरे border के अंदर ना जाऊं. We all the time are fighting as nations. But imagine karo that and it happens, not just imagination, that there is bombardment and there is so much clash and and ruins and everywhere there is just like nothing. तो अब कौन सा बॉर्डर कौन बचाएगा? कौन है बचाने वाला? कि ये मेरी बाउंड्री है, इसके आगे आप ना जाओ. सब कुछ एक ही तो है और जो कि पहले भी एक ही था. So that's what the realization is here, that it's actually only one. The division is actually not there. But once the walls are breached by the rushing waters of the larger sea of the universal being, the division is no more. Now he talks about this soul and cosmos faced as equal powers. The individual consciousness and the universal become one. And in consequence, the individual form feels no longer threatened by the other. It meets the other on equal terms. So जहाँ पे भी threatened feel कर रहे हैं हम, it means my separate individuality is still preserved.
Can I ask a question, Monica? I wanted to
hmm.
ask that this is after, I'm presuming this is the process after one has individualized. So we have spoken about it, that first the individualization is needed, and then only it can merge into the cosmic consciousness. So I wanted to ask, when would one know really that the process of individualization has really completed? Now, like, I also have a sense that, like, it's only my sense from what I understand, that actually, because we are not raised properly in that sense, that actually the individualization should happen from the childhood till the youth, but because we're not raised properly, we have always been to not listen to our inner self. This can happen at any stage of life, whenever the realization comes. But actually, it should be raised, children should be raised, and to a level that they know that now, but like, there are loopholes in parenting, or how we've been raised. So when would one know that, okay, now it is time that I have individualized myself, and now it is a time to really open myself towards the cosmic consciousness?
One would not know it in these terms. ये जो हम terms use कर रहे हैं ना, कि अभी मेरा individualization हो गया, चलो अब next क्या है, ऐसे नहीं होता. जब हो रहा होता है, तो जब हो रहा होता है तो बस हो रहा होता है. ये स्टेप बाय स्टेप हमको, मतलब when we are reading, it's either where we are reading ahead of our time, or we are reading it in retrospect, that the things have happened and now you are reading about it. So, and there may be people who are not reading about it, but things have happened to them. But ये होना कि आपके साथ हो रहा है, मेरा कब टाइम आएगा, I don't think you can predict that, as you yourself were saying, that you actually cannot predict it. But the thing is, we get signs and symptoms. अब देखो ना, जब हम बोलते हैं ego is the helper, ego is the bar, most of us will be able to resonate that right now, wherever we are, ego most of the time becomes a bar. हमको कैसे पता लगता है? हमको ऐसे पता लगता है कि we feel suffocated in the ego consciousness. When we are trying to be right, when we are trying to be after something, कि ये तो करना ही है मैंने, ये तो बंदा ऐसे ही मानेगा, ऐसे ही करवाना है, तो हम uneasy feel करते हैं. And that is why at one of the place mother says that to be in tune with the psychic, always be conscious of the feeling of this uneasiness. Although there is a catch here, because there are two kinds of, one can say, uneasiness on a grosser level. जब आप कोई भी चीज ट्रांसेंड कर रहे होते हो तो भी थोड़ा सा अनईजी फील करते हो, है ना, क्योंकि वो यूज्ड टू नहीं हो उसके. बट अनईजीनेस इन द सेंस दैट यू आर फीलिंग कॉन्स्ट्रिक्टेड, है ना, कि कुछ मैं कर रही हूँ जो ठीक नहीं है. एंड देन द मोमेंट यू चूज द ऑपोजिट ऑफ इट, say for example you wanted to clutch something to yourself, you did not want to give that away, somebody was asking it, you're not feeling very easy about it, heart is feeling not very nice, so you are observing it, and the moment you, in that moment you observe your heart clutching, you decide to give it away, you feel relaxed, you feel wide, है ना. तो मुझे लगता है पहली बात तो ये, again it's a step by step long journey. First the individualization and then the readiness of whatever moving further. But we don't get to know that मैं cosmic के लिए ready हूँ कि मैं किसके लिए ready हूँ, नहीं. Things happen. Things happen. If there is aspiration in the being, purity is being worked upon, तो ये चीजें होती हैं अपने आप. ऐसा नहीं है कि आप बैठ के डिसाइड करोगे माइंड से सोच के कि चलो अब मैं ना कॉस्मिक के लिए रेडी हो गई हूँ, तो चलो अब मैं ये करती हूँ, ध्यान यहाँ लगाती हूँ. नहीं, आपका अपने आप ध्यान किसी एक जगह पे लगना शुरू हो जाएगा. That tells you that you are ready, yeah. अपने आप मन करेगा कि मैं बस इन गैदर करूं अपने आप को, अपने आप मन करेगा कि अच्छा मदर ने बोला था कि यहाँ पे फोकस करना है, तो अच्छा मैं ये करती हूँ अपने आप. that you will feel a liking for that. जो पुरानी चीजें हैं वो अब ऑब्सोलीट लगेंगी, उसमें रस नहीं आएगा, तो नई चीजों में, हायर लॉफ्टियर थिंग्स में रस आएगा. सो दैट टेल्स दैट वी आर नाउ रेडी टू से फर्दर अहेड. But as a step by step logical, I don't think that we can do that, क्योंकि अगेन वहां पे लॉजिकल माइंड की इंटरवेंशन आ गई, जो कि यहाँ पे नहीं रिक्वायर्ड है, यहाँ नहीं चाहिए. ऐसे टाइम्स होते हैं that you begin to love solitude. आपको दोस्त हैं, आप कॉल भी लगा सकते हो, लेकिन you choose to not call. So that's readiness. Preferring solitude over lots of distraction is readiness again for further of consciousness. And that does not mean that we have to remain in solitude all the time. I'm just saying that there are phases that come. They are very good phases, because here we then allow ourselves not to get distracted, है ना. कुछ है being में जिसने decide किया है कि अब मुझे distraction नहीं चाहिए, और फिर आप वो भी time देखते हो that you are in the middle of lots of people and yet you are grounded and not distracted, because your work involves lots of interaction, which is fine because it's the right kind of work that you are doing. But you are not allowing, still a parallel consciousness is always rooted in the divine. You are not allowing yourself distraction. So yeah, like that. जैसे जैसे हमारे में ना प्योरिटी बढ़ती है, वैसे वैसे the universe actually opens the path to all these realizations. If the aspiration is there, then automatically, we can use the word automatically, but there is a lot of personal effort here, because something in the being is wanting it, working on it, stepping back from jealousy, greed, desire, expectations, again enduring the pain. तो ये सारी चीजें हो रही हैं तो प्योरिटी बढ़ रही है. जब प्योरिटी बढ़ रही है तो कोई, देखो हमने सावित्री में एक लाइन पढ़ी थी जिसमें एक था a secret eye as if it's looking and choosing अशुपति कि ये, हाँ ये वाला रेडी हो गया अब, है ना. So we are all being looked like that, एक स्पाई कैमरा हमें देख रहा है. तो जो जो रेडी होता है उसको आगे होना ही होना है. everyone, each one of us. Yeah, any last comments, anyone? So we will stop here today. We could have taken further more, but I think good enough. Stop here. Page number 83. Start from here next time. Okay, okay. Then if not anything, then let's maybe take a last moment of silence to dedicate and share all the merit, or with all the sentient beings, near, far, not only human beings, but all the sentient beings, sharing our merit with everyone. May we have lots of peace in our heart and grounding in the divine. And lots of progress in life. Thank you.